Hello guys, welcome to my new video and I'm super excited to be doing this one. Resto Druid is back on the menu guys, and 9.0.5 has been one of the best patches for Resto Druid because they got an overwhelming amount of HPS buffs, and this is why the video is called the HPS King, because this is not clickbait, because Resto Druid has the best HPS at this given point. Before we're gonna start the video, we're gonna be looking at my playstyle. I've been doing a whole lot of keys with Resto Druid. We're gonna be looking at the overall current balance for Resto Druid, both in raids and Mythic Plus, the talents, the new legendaries, and basically just the overall feel. And maybe try to answer a question: should you try Resto Druid at 9.0.5 and in the future beyond? So let's go. And for real, let's start the video. So right now you see my beautiful Resto Druid with the beautiful Night Fae Covenant. I've been doing a whole lot of Resto Druid stuff in the last 2 days. I think I've done around 15 plus dungeons or something along those lines. But I've been farming dungeons over and over and over again because it's been really fun. And also I kind of decided to make my Resto Druid as my second main alt because of multiple reasons. So what were the buffs for Resto Druids coming into 9.0.5? Rejuvenation was buffed, Wild Growth was buffed, and a very important legendary, Verdant Infusion, has also been buffed. This is a legendary that is purely, a lot of times, it's a single target legendary that was kind of really popular even before 9.0.5. It was to do with high-end Mythic Plus content. It was to do with high-end PvP because it was a single target legendary. It provided a lot of single target healing. And if you're doing high keys in Mythic Plus, you'll notice that the tanks get walloped. This has been buffed, and honestly, I've been running this for every single dungeon, and the playstyle that this attaches to Resto Druid, there is a lot of ways to optimize this, and it creates extra complexity that is rewarding and fun to play. And you could also say it is a HPS legendary. Like for example, if you're running Circle, Life and Death, Circle, Life and Death legendary technically could be regarded, you know, as the option for DPS, because Circle, Life, or Death is going to increase your DPS. Verdant Infusion, on the other hand, is going to give you 0 DPS. But you could also argue that if you're able to extend HOTS on a tank, you can go and DPS for longer. So my recommendation for legendaries right now is that if you need pure HPS healing or single target healing in Mythic Plus content, you probably do if you're doing higher keys, like the best option right now is Verdant Infusion. The HPS that is going to provide, the single target healing that is provide, the extensions that it's going to provide, especially when combined with things like Flourish, you're looking at an insane value. Oh, or actually, Scenario Ward is going to be a big requirement for this legendary, in my opinion. I think running Scenario Ward with Verdant Infusion is going to increase your numbers in terms of single target healing by a substantial amount, because we'll talk about this. If you need that DPS, if you're running a key, you're not worried about the single target healing, you're not worried about the HPS values in Mythic Plus content, I think Circle Life of Death is still a good or a very solid option because it's going to increase your DPS. And a lot of times Resto Druid DPS, it's okay, but you know, any additional extras can also help out a lot. And in raid situations, a lot of people are going to be running Vision of Unending Growth. That's the Rejuve one. We'll talk about the raid setup a bit later on. So what's the deal with this Verdant Infusion? Should I get it? How do I optimize it? Like I mentioned, it is probably going to be one of the most popular Mythic Plus legendaries when coming into high-end keys, or at least a very, very solid option for a lot of Resto Druids. Like I mentioned, you kind of have to run Scenario Ward with it, because Scenario Ward with good extensions, in the testing that I've done, and I've run a lot of these 15 keys to pick up new gear with Valor system, it was doing anywhere between 10 to 15% of my healing. It really depended on my extensions. So Scenario Ward became one of the top heals for me because of how I use Swiftman. So what's going on with this legendary? What does it do here? Swiftman no longer consumes a heal overtime effect, because you have to remember, a normal Swiftman requires a hot to be applied and a specific hot to be applied, and it will remove it. There is a priority system on which hots are going to be removed, and again, you can go into it quite a bit, and extends the duration of your heal overtime effects on the target by 10 seconds. So even though it says it's not going to remove a hot or consume a hot, it still requires a certain hot to be active or removable hot to be active in order to proc it. Like if I want to activate it right now, my Swiftman, I cannot, because I don't have a certain hot like Rejuve, Regrowth hot, Wild Growth, or whatever on it. So that's something to keep in mind, because you will get caught out sometimes if you want to do an extension of this. So how does this double scenario word extension work? How can I optimize my single target healing with this legendary? Like I talked about, scenario word being the key portion here. You can see it's a 30-second cooldown. You can also see that if you apply it on a target, it's going to last for 30 seconds until the target gets hit, and it procs a hot portion of scenario word, which is going to last 8 seconds. And that is the portion you want to extend. Keep in mind that if scenario word is the only thing that you have in your target, you cannot use Swiftman, because it, like I mentioned, this legendary still requires a hot, or a hot that can be removed, to be present. It's not going to get removed, but it requires it to be on it. So for the sake of testing, I'm going to use rejuvenation on myself. I'm going to pop scenario word. You can see it lasts 30 seconds. I don't want to extend this portion. I want to use it on a tank. Tank goes in on a mob. He gets attacked. It procs the 8-second one. We'll wait. Then I use Swiftman. You can see here it got extended by 10 seconds, which is great because my Swiftman has a 9-second cooldown and my scenario word is lasting for 10 seconds. You can make it better if you time it a bit more in a correct way. So right now, I'm going to make sure I have rejuvenation. I'm going to apply Swiftman again, and scenario word got extended twice. And like I mentioned, if you time it better, if you're quick about it, you can make it last even longer. So all of a sudden, you can see my scenario word is available again. So if I want to do it, I can use scenario word again. I can wait for the proc to happen. Let's wait, Swiftman again, and we go back to the same kind of deal. So depending on your extensions and the timing that you do it, you can get 2 scenario words. Now keep in mind, this requires a certain finessing, and you kind of have to be quick about timing it. A lot of the times, just getting 1 extension is still going to be extremely nice. For example, I like to play a certain, or I like to do a certain, how do I say it, a combo that lets me empower or extend an empowered rejuvenation. So I am running Soul of the Forest, and a lot of people might be running Soul of the Forest regardless, because it's just a solid talent. And right now with Soul of the Forest and the extension that Verdant Infusion provides, I think it becomes even stronger. So what I like to do is that I want to make sure that I have something like Regrowth Hot on a tank before I'm going to apply Regrowth or something along those lines, because Regrowth Hot, you know, it needs to be there for your Swiftman to be proccable. So I'm going to apply Regrowth, I'm going to apply Scenario Word, I'm going to use it on a tank, the tank is going to proc it, I'm going to use Swiftman. Now I'm going to get Empowered Soul of the Forest, I'm going to use Rejuvenation. So now I have an Empowered Rejuvenation on a tank with Scenario Word, and my Swiftman has a 4-second cooldown. So when my Swiftman comes back, I'm going to use Swiftman straight away, and I extended Empowered Rejuve, and I extended Scenario Word. The amount of healing that I'm getting right now, just by doing this simple trick, is just insane. You have to remember, Empowered Rejuvenation with Soul of the Forest, it's going to increase the healing of the next Regrowth or Rejuvenation by 200%. If you can extend that by additional 10 seconds and things like that, and then on top of that you have Scenario Word, on top of that you might have your Life Bloom, you might have your Spring Blossoms, you might have your Wild Growth Hot. We're looking at a juicy amount of single target. Like, I am not being out of line when I say the Resto Druid with this build has to be the best single target healer if they play it well and extend the Hots in a nice way. They have to be one of the best. And this is because of the gameplay that's associated with it, the Hots, the Scenario Word, the using it on a tank, you extending it, using Swiftman. You can kind of go in DPS, depending on which DPS option you go to. You probably have a bit more time to spend in DPS as depending on which affinity you use. Now, in the videos that I'm kind of showing in the clips, I'm using Feral Affinity, because Feral Affinity, in my opinion, is far more interesting and far more fun to play. Feral Affinity in general is not in the meta because Typhoon is just so strong. The combo of Ursoc Vortex with Typhoon giving you like this AoE interrupt capabilities is just far too... You cannot lose that in high keys. You cannot lose the Typhoon in keys like Sanguine and things like that. But if you don't need that Typhoon and if you're not doing really high keys, I generally feel Feral Affinity is so much more fun to play, and it kind of brings me back to the Legion heyday where you had these bleeds, you had these... You know... With Swiftman extension, you can stay in your cat form for a really long time. And I had a whole lot of fun as Resto Druid doing this kind of play style with Feral Affinity, with Verdant Infusion, with the extensions to Scenario Word, with the extensions to Empowered rejuvenations. And I didn't even mention Flourish. If you can combine Flourish with this as well, just think of the capabilities. What I'm saying, the chain or the chain rotation that I showed you, that might not be the best way of doing it. There's actually a lot of different ways of kind of optimizing this Verdant Infusion build with Flourish. And honestly, let me know what kind of playstyle you like to play with this legendary. How do you like to extend your HUD? What is your kind of like a tip or trick on how to really get a huge amount of single target healing? Leave a comment below and I'll read all of them. So now let's go to the raid section for Restoration Druids. And honestly, the changes in terms of legendaries has not really seeped into the raiding section, because you have to remember, Vision of Ending Growth, legendary that existed for a long time since Shadowlands for Restoration Druid, gives you rejuvenation, a free rejuvenation that has been buffed. Rejuve value is better, wild growth healing is better. All of a sudden there's a lot of conduits that also affect wild growth healing, and they've become better as well. So Vision of Ending Growth is my recommendation for raiding section right now. I do feel that your Verdant Infusion might have some niche situations in raids, but right now I don't think it's going to be as popular. So Vision of Ending Growth, crafting this legendary if you're looking to do raiding as Resto Druid, is probably a solid choice. If you want that HPS or single target healing in Mythic Plus situations, I think Verdant Infusion is going to be the way to go. If you want DPS and a bit of healing in Mythic Plus, I do feel that Circle Life that is probably going to be your another solid choice. So I think at least 3 legendaries should be crafted right now if you're a Resto Druid. There has been a lot of other legendaries that people use. This, like, honestly, Resto Druid has a ton of legendaries. You need to always kind of grind that Soul Ash, because you never know what's going to happen in the next patch. So at this moment, I definitely recommend at least 3 legendaries to cover all your bases if you can craft them. In terms of Resto Druid raid performance, there's nothing but excellent things to be said. Right now, they're the top HPS healer in Castle Nature, in Mythic at 75 percentile. If you go to 99 percentile, they're even performing better. You can see Mysteries have kind of climbed back as well, because the mana reductions. This is what it used to look like before 9.0.5, by the way. Discipline Priest was the top because Spirit Shell was quite good. It got nerfed. And then you saw Resto Druids getting like a 5% HPS buff. And then you saw Mysteries getting mana reduction. So all of a sudden, this is correlated to this HPS meters, where Resto Druid is the actual HPS king. You have to remember, it used to be, at the very start of Shadowlands, Resto Shaman used to be in the exact same position, and they got a 4% nerf, or something along those lines, which brought them back to the middle of the pack. But that doesn't matter, because Resto Shaman has a ton of utility. Is this HPS boost going to be good enough? I'm going to say this in the best possible way. If you're not doing highest end content, you should be extremely happy about Resto Druid, because it's gonna give you the best numbers. If you care about those details or looking good in terms of HPS, Resto Druid is the healer right now. Their pure HPS is unmatched, and it's not going to be matched, believe me, until maybe 9.1, but there's going to be more changes. If you care about World First raiding for 9.1, you're just gonna have to wait, because I'm not sure what's gonna happen in 9.1. I'm not sure what the raid composition or the raid kind of damage patterns are going to look like. Is it going to be spread fights? Is there going to be damage every 1 minute? Are you going to have a lot of movement? Is there going to be more buffs for something like Mistweavers? Again, the trio healers that everyone loves, Resto Shaman, Discipline Priest, and Holy Paladin, are still going to be the trifecta. But then you're going to need a 4th healer, and maybe guilds are going to be looking into bringing that giga pure HPS healer that Resto Druid is. So nothing's really certain for 9.1. Right now, the only one thing that I can say is that Resto Druid is gonna top your meters, and undoubtedly, it is the best HPS healer in almost all content. Whether that's going to be good enough to bring them to the very top, probably, you tell me. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know if you're gonna play Resto Druid. Honestly, an extremely fun healer. If there's only one thing that I want to mention, make Feral Affinity more viable, make it more damage or substantially more damage than Balance Affinity, so I would be forced to run Feral Affinity because it's just so much more fun than Balance Affinity in my honest opinion. Let me know guys, leave your comment below, and I'll see you in my next video.